schools, phonics and grammar and penmanship and cursive writing, you say, well, we don't need that anymore. That's absolutely insane.
It is.
And our leaders allowed this to prevail in our public schools. So by design, they're failing. So why not sustain and support Benjamin Banneker when, in fact, all of the schools, particularly at the elementary level and across the board, are failing under the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, who are appointed by the mayor.
Right.
They're now appointed by the mayor, not just the governor and the mayor. The mayor appoints the school commissioners, and Santelises is a political operative who has no empathy or sympathy for blacks in terms of academic excellence. She's pandering to the Baltimore Development Corporation and the Greater Baltimore Committee, and those interests that are antithetical to the vital interests of African people.
All right, folks, this is what's happening. Call very quickly. Tell people where to come tonight so they can get in on this conversation in person.
Yes, 5 o'clock, 200 East North Avenue. That's the school board headquarters on the first floor board conference room. As many people as possible, we're asking the turnout to encourage the school board to reject the CEO's recommendation to close the school and instead give Banneker Blake a multi-year contract. And we'll gladly leave the school building that we're in now, go to a new school building that we will be renovating and will open for more Black boys to be able to attend. Tonight, 5 o'clock, 200 East North Avenue.
Folks, you're always asking, what can you do? Well, here's something you can do. You said you wanted to hear the other side of the story. Go to the meeting, right, Carl? You can hear both sides of the story, and then you can make up your mind. But I just want to add that as you go and you get both sides of the story, folks, remember the third narrative. And the third narrative is the history of this country in miseducating our Black boys. Remember, there's a third narrative on the table as well. And we're trying to fight that narrative as well. Former Councilman Carl Stokes, co-founder of the Banneker Blake Academy, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on today. We just want to raise up the banner. We want to blow the horn as well when there's a need in our community.
Thank you so much, Dr. K, and thank you for all you've done for the education of Black students across this city and beyond.
Thank you so much, sir. So, folks, we're going to hold it here. When we come back, let's open up the phones. Let's talk about some of these issues with our Black boys. Let's talk about what happened at UTSA at San Antonio. Let's talk about what happened at Eastern Tech. There's a lot going on for American Education Week that demands our attention. This is Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. Quick update from MTA, and we'll talk on the other side.
Good afternoon. On the Local Link buses, we've got diversions on the Purple Line diverted westbound to Lombard and Fulton. The Orange Line is diverted at Franklin and Cary. 79 westbound diverted at Bloomingdale and Garrison. And 79 eastbound is diverted at Forest Park and Granada. On the MARC train system, seeing pretty much an on-time ride everywhere except for train 537 on the Penn Line. That's running about 5 to 10 minutes late. We've got no problems on the MTA commuter buses. The light rail link is on time and no issues with the Metro subway link. For the MTA Transit Team, I'm Ken Berger on 88.9 FM WEAA, the voice of the community.
Here's what you missed on Mornings with Mikkel.
The First Lady of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Michelle.
Thank you.
Obama.
Any applause? No applause. Okay, fine.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Barack intrigued me. He was not like anyone I dated before, mainly because he seemed so secure. He was openly affectionate. He told me I was beautiful. He made me feel good. To me, he was sort of like a unicorn.
Becoming Mrs.
And
Obama.
still I rise. Excuse me.
WEAA, absolutely the voice of the community.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandy Mallory, the Public Service Director and host of Cool Vibes with the Neo Soul Cafe, heard during the middays, Monday through Friday. I want to take a moment to thank each of you for your assistance during the fall membership drive. Whether a large or small donation, each one stood for something. Your desire to keep WEAA available for everyone. There is still a need for your support. Please consider sending your tax-deductible donation to WEAA.org. Support your community radio station today.
Celebrating 40 years of broadcasting. Morgan State University Public Radio. 88.9 WEAA FM and HD1, Baltimore.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump is offering his support to California as deadly wildfires continue to ravage the state.
I want to thank the firefighters and FEMA and first responders for their incredible courage in the face of very grave danger. Yesterday, I signed a disaster declaration for the state of California. We will do everything in our power to support and protect our fellow citizens in harm's way. And we say, I think as a group, I can tell you as a group, God bless everybody. That's a very tough situation.
The president's offer of support comes 3 days after he blamed poor forest management by the state for making California's fires so big, deadly, and costly. The wildfires have claimed dozens of lives, with hundreds of people reported missing. The Camp Fire north of Sacramento has killed at least 42 people and has destroyed more than 125,000 acres. In Southern California's Ventura County, firefighters are battling the latest flare-up in the Woolsey Fire. NPR's Rebecca Ellis reports planes are dropping thousands of gallons of fire retardant to try to contain the blaze.
A new flare-up has sparked in the footprint of Southern California's Woolsey Fire, causing even more smoke to descend on those near the scorched Santa Monica Mountains. Mark Lorenzen is the Ventura County Fire Chief.
It's a large, unburned, a couple of canyons of fuel there. The fire came into alignment at the bottom of the canyon, and along with our significant winds, it pushed it up towards a prominent peak we call Boney Mountain.
Evacuation orders have been lifted for residents in nearby areas, but Lorenzen warned those who are returning home to remain vigilant.
We are not out of the woods yet. We still have some incredibly tough conditions ahead of us.
Rebecca Ellis, NPR News.
The state of Maryland is challenging the appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting U.S. Attorney General. As NPR's Nina Totenberg reports, the lawsuit filed today contends the appointment violates both federal law and the Constitution.
The Trump administration has defended the Whitaker appointment, citing the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, which allows the president broad authority to temporarily fill vacant positions that otherwise would require Senate confirmation. The Maryland lawsuit contends that law is superseded by several far more specific statutes governing certain important positions: Defense Secretary, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, CIA Director, and Attorney General. With respect to each, there's a separate federal statute that requires a vacancy at the top to be filled by the second in command, the deputy, who's been confirmed by the Senate. Thus, the lawsuit contends that federal law requires the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, not Whitaker, be named acting Attorney General. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was down 100 points, the Nasdaq down a fraction, the S&P down 4. This is NPR.
Accidents now popping up around the area in Lansdowne, Annapolis Road near Pennsylvania Avenue at Vermont. There's a crash, as well as on West 24th Street at North Howard. Also another accident cleaning up in the city on Washington Boulevard at Bayard Street. 450 remains blocked both directions between Huntwood Drive and Rutland Road with high water. Owings Mills, there's an accident now. Reisterstown Road near Pleasant Ridge Drive, as well as a couple more popping up in the city on Greenspring Avenue at Quarry Lake, as well as in Liberty Heights Avenue near Reisterstown Road. Around the Beltway, inner loop, heavy volume from 95 up through Security Boulevard, and again from Greenspring Avenue around towards Perring Parkway. Outer loop, you'll find heavy volume from 95 in Rossville around towards JFX, and again from 795 through Edmondson Avenue. Northbound 95 is a slow trip from 216 up to Route 175, where the earlier accident has cleared. Heavy now from Key Highway through the Fort McHenry tolls. This updated service of unbound.org. For more traffic information, go to sigalert.com. I'm Paula Young with your Baltimore area traffic.
Support for WEAA Traffic and MTA Report is provided by Indeed.com. More information available at Indeed.com/hire.
88.9 FM reminds you that the views expressed on WEAA programs are those of participants and not necessarily those of Morgan State University, the staff, management, or underwriters of Baltimore's home for cool jazz. WEAA 88.9 FM.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. Folks, it is American Education Week. There is a school board meeting tonight, and one of the things on the docket is whether or not the school board should accept Dr. Santelisa's recommendation to close Banneker Blake Academy. It's an academy that focuses specifically on meeting the educational needs of African American males. So we talked to former City Councilman Carl Stokes, who's also one of the co-founders of the school, about that. I want to open up the conversation because I'm trying to figure out, maybe you can think out loud with me, why it is that Baltimore City cannot seem to figure out a way to properly educate our Black boys and girls. What is the problem? If you take a look at the last scores, this is from 2018, right now in this city, 3rd through 8th grade students, only 41% of 3rd through 8th grade students received a passing score in English. Only 34% of them received a passing score in math. For our 10th graders, only 42% have a passing score in English, and only 31% have a passing score in algebra. So, folks, what does that mean? That means that here in Baltimore City, in a city that is predominantly African American, our folks, here in this city, 50% of our students don't meet proficiency. I'm talking, listen to this now, that our students are not able to read on a 3rd grade level if they're in 3rd grade. By the time they get to 8th grade, they can't read on an 8th grade level. We don't have 50% of our students being proficient in English. And if the English scores make you angry, if the English scores kind of piss you off, because that's what happened to me, I was physically ill looking at the math scores. What do you mean to tell me that only 31% of the 10th graders in our city pass algebra? Do we understand that you need to pass algebra in order to go to the next level of math to get you ready for college? So Baltimore City, when you start talking about miseducating the Negro, which is the title of Dr. Carter G. Woodson's book, that's what's happening in this city. So you want to close Banneker Blake? Okay, I get that. Well, then tell me how we're going to fix this. Because if I was a parent of a 10th grader, and I looked at his test scores or her test scores, and you're telling me that my child is not proficient in algebra, I want to know exactly what has happened. You're telling me my child, because if you look at the numbers here right in Baltimore City, if only 42% are proficient in English, well, then what is that, 58%? So 58% of the 10th graders in Baltimore City can't read on a 10th grade level. 58%. This is disgusting. This is disturbing. This is a problem. And this is American Education Week. Let's talk about how to fix it. I have William on the phone from Woodlawn. William, how are you?
Hello, Dr. K. Thank you for receiving my call. I was listening to your program earlier, and I had to go outside to rake up some leaves. But I was calling because I was hoping we could replace a particular word that we use when we refer to Afro-American males. Mm-hmm. And that is, we are constantly calling them boys. And yes. What we don't realize is there's a segment of society that will continually refer to them as boys. So it would be nice if we could replace that as juveniles, whippersnappers, young kings, young princes.
Okay, you got me. I'm with that. So I will. Now, I don't like juveniles, because sometimes when I hear juveniles, what rings to me is juvenile justice and all the juvenile delinquent. But I like our young kings, young princes, young brothers. I will do that. Yes, I appreciate that.
Even call them by their name, but please, that word boy, oh, God. It's like
I can get that.
Blackboard.
I get that. And you know what? I will, to be very honest, because I like to be transparent on the show, the word boy, if I say black boy around my father, it actually triggers him. Because he grew up in Jim Crow, South Carolina. And so I'm very cognizant when I'm around my daddy not to even, he had a problem when I used to call my sons, his grandsons, boys, because of white America using the term black boy to direct that towards men.
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you, William. I appreciate that.
Go.
All right, folks, we'll make that change. All right, Charles from Overly. Charles, how are you?
Oh, hi, Dr. K. Yeah, I agree with that brother also. I always call them young men.
Yes.
At any rate, it's interesting. I think that we in this city can do anything that we think is important. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If they view this as something that's important, it's the heck with the rules. They would keep it in place.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think the reason is because of what their mission is, which is educating young African American males. I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're not getting the level of support that they should get.
Right.
And I think it falls back to, I hate to use this word, but institutional racism.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, gee whiz, why do they, meaning us, have to have a school, special school for our people, for our kids? I think that's part of the reason why they find themselves in this position.
Right.
I think what they're doing is outstanding, and I'm quite frankly tired of our young men speaking English like it's a second language. Okay?
That really is disturbing. I mean, Charles, you're getting into something right now, because when you start talking about African American vernacular English, AAVE, folks, which is actually a field of study, when we start talking about teaching our children, our young men and women, I'm working on it, Charles, teaching our young men and women how to code switch. I mean, when I was a school teacher, I'm like, no, you don't have to change the way you talk to your brothers and sisters or your homeboys in the street, but you got to code switch. Learn how to flip it so you'll know what environment you're in, so that way your English skills don't hold you back.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. K, I got to tell you this real fast. I know you got other callers. When I was growing up, I thought a lot of the fellas thought I was a nerd because I spoke the King's English. That's what was taught. And later, when I ran into some of these fellas, do you know they actually pulled me up and said, "Man, I used to look up to you because you could speak to them and you could still speak with the fellas." And a lot of times I think our kids get hooked up in the thing where they don't want to sound, I hate to use this term, white.
Oh yeah.
So, speaking proper English is exclusively their domain. Okay.
I agree.
And I think young men need to be pulled away from that because, as I said, some of the tough guys told me they looked up to me. Isn't that something?
No, I liked it. Thank you so much, Charles. But that's something that happens in school. Jessica Schiller chimed in and she said, Dr. K, I don't think you should privilege test scores as a way to measure academic success. That does not mean that they cannot read or do math, if they cannot pass tests. Not to say that they are doing well. One thing we need is high expectations, culturally relevant curriculum, and multiple measures of success. Jessica, I actually agree with you. You know that. But my concern, and I'd love to have other people on Facebook. I see Ron Harrison's on there. He's a former principal and a teacher. Folks, test scores, even though we don't want to privilege them, test scores do matter. And I know that for a fact because right now I'm dealing with college applications. I would like to believe that my son being wonderful, brilliant, bright, loving is enough. It's not. They say send us the test scores, send us his his GPA, send us his academic records. It's just not enough to have all these multiple measures of success. When it comes down to the end of the day, to get into a citywide high school, those test scores do matter. These 10th graders who they're not proficient in algebra, how do they move on? So Jessica, give me a call, 410-319-8888, because I'm into culturally responsive instruction. I design this type of curriculum. I also know, and I tell teachers, at the same time, baby, at the end of the day, those test scores and those grades actually do matter. It's not just enough to say, well, we're doing all these great things, but they can't pass the test. Come on now. We have Mark on the phone from Annapolis. Mark, how are you?
Good afternoon, Dr. K.
Good afternoon.
I'm thinking about the thing called public school and why do we have public school? What was it intended for other than education? And, after doing some research, I found out that the basic curriculum was for the industrial revolution.
Get people ready to work in the factory.
And you come in, the bell rings, okay, go to the machine.
Yes.
Bell rings, go check the machine. The bell rings, you go to lunch. The bell rings, just break. Bell rings, you go home. And since we're not living in an industrial revolution, we're more in a technological revolution, that's got to change.
Yes,
because
it does.
no wonder the kids don't want to, it's like, I don't want to eat this oatmeal when everybody else is having, fruit and grain and yogurt or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. It's archaic. And I think that's the American curse, is that we, meaning the elders, are trying to cling on to the past instead of embracing the future and looking down the road saying, this is not going to work on them. We don't need this Model T. We need to go ahead and get the, the Chrysler Cordova with the Corinthian leather. I mean, it's at that point now, and and the system is failing, and it's failing us. And we have to stand up and say, you know what? It's time to get rid of those big old Cranberry Webster dictionaries and get something new in here, because the whole game has changed.
Right. Right, but the game has changed. Though I'm with you, Mark. The game has changed. Unfortunately, I always feel, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I always feel like the game gets changed up top, but those of us who are dealing with all the systemic racism and institutionalized racism, we don't even know the game has changed. We're still trying to learn the rules of the old game, and the game has moved on.
And then the thing of it is that, like I always say to myself, why don't I even? You see the two old guys in the park playing chess. One of them is going to lose. The pieces on the board are going to get taken eventually.
Yeah.
I'm that guy standing there watching the game. I'm not in the game. I'm not the pieces to be played. I'm not in the game. I created the game. So I'm not going to allow the game to take me out. Well, that's crazy. Well, what kind of fool am I going to allow the game to take me out?
Right.
No, I'm not even going to sit down and play it.
That's what we're talking about. Thank you very much, folks. It's we need to talk about this. Dwayne Watson said, you know what, Chrysler or not, using that car analogy, reading, writing, and math, that's the game, folks. I'm sorry, there's something disturbing about 66% of 3rd through 8th graders not being proficient in math. Like, there's something disturbing. Am I the only one? Give me a call, 410-319-8888, because this is disturbing me, that these numbers are in place, and yet we can't figure out how to fix it. At the same time, we understand about the air conditioning system. We understand about the rats that were running around the building. We understand about the lack of heat. We understand that the schools are not even set up to look like they want our children to be there. So our children are already coming into an environment that's breaking down and crumbling around them, an environment that looks like nobody cares about them. And then we get surprised when they are being miseducated, and that miseducation comes out on the other end. We have Stephen on the phone, a new caller from Baltimore. Stephen, how are you? Welcome to the family.
I'm wonderful. How are you? Is Mr. Stokes still around, or is he off the air?
He's off the air because he's getting ready for the school board meeting that happens at 5. Yes.
I think so much of what we talk about has a lot to do with the parents. The parents are miseducated and uneducated. They don't value the system. And not just, I'm sorry, don't want to say the system, because I know how our folks get about when we say the word system. Don't value the fact that they have free education. I think if we charged $1 a year for education, it would take so many people out of it. I don't think the parents and the children as well. I know our children. We always cry racism. And I'm not saying racism does not exist.
Right.
I'm not saying racism is not an issue, but our go-to default is they're not helping Black boys. They're not helping Black people. When can we do something, start fresh and say, what are we going to do for ourselves? I don't think enough of us support the fact that we have this free education, because it can turn around. My question to Mr. Stokes was, what would happen to his school if he had more parent participation? If he had the 18% that improved in grades, if he had 18% parent participation, what would that do to improve the school? So that's my point.
That's a good point. And I'm looking at Justina for her to just give a quick text to Carl Stokes. I want to find out what parent participation looks like. We'll get an answer for that, Steve. Thank you so much.
All the best. Right.
We have Lance on the phone from Baltimore. Lance, how are you?
Hey, Dr. K, how's your day?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. I guess my main point that I want to bring up is that as far as education, I graduated from high school in 2009, roughly about 10 years ago. And when I went to Baltimore City College High School, one of the best high schools in Baltimore. Loved the school, it was great. But I also still felt like the education was lacking at that time. And just to give you a frame of mind, just to give you a frame of reference for the time that I was in the school, I started high school in 2005. In those 4 years, they had a lot of changes. So in 2005, it's a college preparatory school. So we originally had, you had roughly, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 classes a day. You had A and B days. So you switch off each day, going to different classes. And while that didn't necessarily work out for a lot of students because of the fact that you're just going to high school and you don't have the other half of the school year to recoup the fact that you've been screwing up the other half.
Oh, okay. I see. You don't have that catch guard.
Right. So they switched that out and made it 7 classes all year round, which worked out, I guess, because we kept that for the next 3 years. And just to give another reference was that I took Spanish from, that would be 2006, so sophomore year all the way through senior year. I took it for 3 years. I took Latin, which is like a tradition at City. Took Latin the first year. Hardly learned any Latin other than the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a tradition. And then for Spanish, I'm right now I'm on Duolingo, which is a free language learning app, and I'm learning more in there than I learned in 3 years at City.
Well, let me ask you this. But let me ask you this, Lance. Coming out of City now, I want to phrase this question because I don't mean to be offensive. Did you go on to college?
I did not go on. I'm in college now.
Okay.
I went on to the military.
Okay.
At the time, I'm going to tell you, I was very jaded in high school and coming out of high school. I felt like everything didn't matter. What did it matter? My parents didn't have the money for school. Didn't matter if I did good in school or not. I wasn't getting a scholarship. So at the end of the day, I was like, military is the best bet for me, and that's where I went.
Okay.
But just to give just a summation, like as far as the educational system in Baltimore or in Maryland or any place that's predominantly Black, the educational system is not geared towards those Black and brown children.
Right.
You're talking about an educational system that still gives me 1 month to learn about African American history.
Mm-hmm.
How is that possible in a predominantly Black city? That's crazy to me that you have.
It is. It is. It is. And we've normalized it. That's my problem. That we've normalized that behavior within our curriculum, and then when we push back, we're met with a lot of other forms of resistance.
Right. Exactly. And I feel as though on top of the fact that you have these slights against, like, you're talking about like equal opportunities for education. Public schools supposed to do that after we had desegregation and after we, made everything equal, so on and so forth. But it's not really real equity if it feels as though I'm learning someone else's history and I'm learning my history part-time.
Right, I'm about to stop you there, Lance. Thank you so much. We're going to go to C next from Pikesville, and Jean, Maurice, Patrick, and Misha. I'm also coming to you. Hello, C. How are you?
Okay, Doc, it's Cy.
Cy. I'm sorry.
How you doing, Doc?
you normally call from Nova Scotia. I know that much.
Okay, so a couple, either a month or two ago, you gave you were talking about corporal punishment in the school system.
Yes.
And I tried to call you then, however, work was keeping me away from you. Now, what I wanted to say was the school system is as it is. And I was in Buffalo and I went to a town hall meeting on education. We had a panel of 3 students, 3 parents, 3 teachers, and 3 members from the Board of Education. I sat there for 2.5 hours for nothing because everybody was blaming everybody else. And no one was taking responsibility for the education of these kids.
Right.
And after, I wondered, what does it all mean? What is it all for? So I left and I was still lost as to what we could possibly do. And that's it.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that tonight we're going to once again have this meeting, and the meeting is around Banneker Blake. But Cy, like you, a lot of times at these meetings, we're dealing with one issue at a time, but not what the root cause is. I mean, the meetings we had in the spring were all about the fact that there wasn't any heat, right? I mean, that took up a bulk of our time here in Baltimore City. The meetings we've had at the beginning of the year, we're dealing with the fact that there's no air, but it's not getting to the root cause. And the root cause is the way the system is not set up to effectively educate our students in this city.
Well, the reason why I was calling in regarding that issue was because the same thing that you're talking about right now here in Baltimore, somebody's talking about it in Chicago, someone's talking about it in Detroit, Buffalo, Houston. It's happening everywhere because the same children that are coming up here in Baltimore, they're coming up all over this country.
Yes, they are.
And that mentality, that education is lost to these children.
Yes, you're
That's all I
absolutely
have to
right.
say.
Thank you so much,
Peace
Sai.
to the family.
Yeah, peace to you as well. Folks, I just want to throw out the thing that Sai just mentioned was about the corporal punishment in school. Do note that 19 states do allow corporal punishment in school, and that it was ruled in 1977 in the Ingram v. Wright case that school corporal punishment is constitutional and left it up to the states. That's what he was referencing when he was talking about the corporal punishment conversation we had about the schools. Jessica Schiller chimed in again. She said, I get what you're saying about test scores, and we can improve the test scores of students, but if we don't make the long-term solution pushing back on the use of testing, we will be stuck with it. Testing is a measure of family income, and the district spends millions on it. We could use the money for improving teaching. I absolutely agree with you, Jessica. I do think, though, test scores, unfortunately, until we change that, push it back, we've got to figure out a way where it doesn't matter. So what else holds that weight? I mean, I know that when you're planning for college, if you don't send your SAT or ACT, they want your grade. So you have low SAT and ACT, and you have low grades. Well, what else are we using to measure our students effectively? We can talk about that as well. 410-319-8888. I have Gene on the phone from Pikesville. Gene, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good, Dr. K. What did you say? The system is not set up to do what?
To adequately and effectively educate young African American children. It is
Okay,
not.
so
Yes.
when back in the day when I started out in my career in banking, I started out in human resources, and non-exempt employees, tellers, were non-exempt hourly wage.
Okay.
And so when they came in, this is the basic skills that they need. And this is a skill that you acquire in the fourth grade. Right? By the time you get in the fourth grade, you can add, subtract, divide, and multiply. How do you prove that adding is correct? You do it by subtraction, and you do the reverse for subtraction, right? And multiplication is division, and division is the opposite, right?
They're all
That's how you
builds on
prove.
each other.
So with a fourth grade education, you could get a job as a teller.
Right.
And how do we acquire these skills? What we are not talking about is we have to memorize. We have to memorize lists. And the logical sequence of how things are done. And that's what happened. We no longer are forced to memorize lists and systems. And so we fall short. Because the more you memorize, the bigger your brain gets, and the more your brain
All
has
the way
capacity.
through. You're actually true.
And the brain has capacity to learn more and more and more. And we're not challenging our children. Very simple. And that's what's not happening in the public school system. The issue today in the system, while they're trying to break this school down, is because what Dr. Sandalisa said was they're not effectively dealing with the children who are what do they call them? The special education.
Right. Students who have special needs.
education, right? Needs, and so this charter school is not effectively dealing with that. Neither is the Baltimore public school system.
None of them are.
So they are accusing them of doing something that they can't do, and they're eliminating them because what they do well is they teach black kids how to be black.
I'm going to stop you there, Gene, because we're up against a hard break. When we come back, Maurice, Patrick, Mika, David, Clarence, I'm coming right to you. Folks, there's still a line open, 410-319-8888. We're talking about the miseducation of young African-American men and women. It's happening. It's been happening, and it will continue to happen until we disrupt it. This is Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. Keep it right here. You are invited to be a part of a conversation about the challenges Black female athletes face in sports. Morgan State University School of Global Journalism and Communication, along with ESPN's The Undefeated, will present a discussion about discrimination based on race and sex in sports. This conversation will be recorded for a documentary, and you are invited to participate. The moderator of the discussion is Lene O'Neill, senior writer of ESPN's Undefeated. So be a part of the studio audience and discussion on Tuesday, November 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Morgan State University Center Theater. For more information, visit WEAA.org.
This is Gene Knight, host of Cafe Jazz. And at Cafe Jazz, we play real jazz for folks who feel jazz. Original vinyl recordings from swing to mainstream and progressive, and some of the more recent releases by up-and-coming artists. Cafe Jazz is a total jazz experience. That's why your radio station airs Cafe Jazz. So if you're a real jazz lover, remember to listen to Cafe Jazz.
Wednesday night at 10 on WEAA 88.9 FM.
From Randallstown to Greenbelt and everywhere in between, we're loud and kicking. The voice of the community. WEAA 88.9 FM.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. We're talking about what's been happening in our school system. It's American Education Week. Now, I put out the statistics, and I've gotten some pushback, and I definitely agree with Jessica Schiller saying, it's not just about measuring our young people based upon test scores, pushing back on the test scores as a whole. At the same time, I do think it's something that we have to draw attention to. I think we have to clearly state how it is here in Baltimore City that 69% of our 10th graders are not proficient in algebra. And we have to clearly state that 66% of our 3rd through 8th graders are not proficient in math. I think that we have to clearly state that 58% of our 10th graders are not proficient in English. And yes, folks, 59% are not proficient from the 3rd through 8th grade level in English. So even though we're not using test scores as the only form of measurement, I think it's important to note that in Baltimore City, a city that is predominantly African American, at this point, more than 50% of our young men and women, 3rd through 8th grade, 10th grade in particular, are not proficient in English, math/algebra. That should be appalling. That should make you angry. That is the reality. This is Baltimore, folks. We have Maurice on the phone. Maurice is a new call from Pasadena, Maryland. Maurice, how are you? And welcome to the family.
Great, Dr. K. Dr. K, I just thank you for having this show. I really do. I'm excited to hear you speaking this way. I wish to God you would have a show one day where you can bring on men such as myself, brothers, and because I'm one of those guys who, you're 100% correct about our educational system. I volunteer in Baltimore and Annapolis. I'm from D.C. originally. I graduated from high school in '84. I could barely read. I was in the humanities system. College prep programs. Got to college and had to take remedial everything.
Wow.
I could barely read, and the thing about it is still continue on today like that. But Dr. K, I truly believe that it's a bigger issue. And even, yes, you're right, the education system is correct, but we have to change the very mind of our young men and women because, yes, I grew up on welfare, standing in line for block cheese, powdered milk, canned beef, dad around, mom on welfare, 5 kids. But I've gone on to earn over $20,000 a year. I've gone on without a college degree. Hanging on my wall, I've earned a congressional citation for starting a program called Watchdogs, where we bring men up to the school to volunteer to help our young people in a black and brown neighborhood. The issue, I think, Dr. K, is that we need to have teach our young men and young women to have a different mentality, one of being a conqueror, more than a conqueror, a complete and total overcomer. One, no matter what you're beginning, no matter how meager it is, with torn up books, beat up desks, no computers, we can still go on and accomplish whatever we want as long as the adults speaking to them can say so. But too many of us adults are speaking to our young kids, you don't have a hope. You don't have a chance. The system is against you. You can't make it. And our kids have a system of we say on one hand, you can make it, you can become somebody, but then before 3 breaths are taken, we tell them, yeah, but you can't because the system is against you. In spite of the system,
you can still make it.
We will make it.
You know what, Maurice? I'm gonna have to stop you there, but I want don't hang up, Maurice. I'm gonna ask Justina to get your phone number because you just said we need to have a panel with men like you. I want to take you up on that challenge, Maurice. So hold on, let's get your information. We have Patrick on the phone. Patrick is a new caller from Baltimore. Patrick, welcome to the family.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoy your show. I listen to you frequently.
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I have never been good at math. The only thing I remember about geometry was the shortest distance between 2 points of a straight line. That's all I remember. And I am soon to be 70 years old. And I have never in my lifetime had to use algebra. Now, I am Phi Theta Kappa. I am the dean's list for 10 years. I have a 3.9 GPA, but I have not been able to get my degree because I cannot pass Algebra 1.
Wow.
Now, I know you're a great doctor and you speak of systems that you can use for unique cases of sorts. But I wonder if because of my age and because I've noticed that I didn't need algebra to do what I've done, and I've been very successful as a composer and managing companies, and I've done very well without the college degree.
Right.
But I know so many people in this city, Black adults, who could not pass that algebra class,
right,
and they didn't get their degrees. There are hundreds, I would even say thousands of them.
Wow.
Right up at BCCC, I was the president of the Student Governance Board. And a lot of friends and people I knew could not graduate because of that algebra stipulation. Some of us are made for math. Some of us are made for creative. And I wonder, is there a way for us to remove that stigma? I understand in the state of Texas now, they've removed it in their systems because they found it to be too much of a stumbling block, considering its applicability to people who are not going into engineering or something that would require.
Or medicine, for example, yes.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm very much interested in your thoughts on that, and I wanted to also tell you. And I know this. You have a lot of time, so I know you have callers waiting. But I wanted to talk to you about our children. Nothing is more important and more precious at this time in our lives than our children. But I go to the school board meetings. I have an after-school program where I teach from 7 to 10-year-olds piano, violin, and cello. I've been doing it for the last 3 years now. I also volunteer with Reading Partners as a tutor to help children in reading because I love words. And if you read it to them right, they'll fall in love with it
they
real
will.
quick. You know, but I think there's a greater problem that is sort of taboo to discuss, and that is the way we talk to our children.
I think so. I think, I want to have you do, because, what you're saying to me, Patrick, is something I really want to investigate. Would you mind? I know I'm sending a lot of people to Justina, but we want to follow up on these issues. This thing about this algebra component, I want to follow up with you on that. And I also want to pull you into a conversation we're going to have at a later date, Patrick, about the impact of having our students, our children, learn a musical instrument early. Even if they don't go on to play in the opera or become a musician, but what opens up in their brain development, learning how to play the guitar, the piano, the violin. So that's a conversation I want to have with you. Patrick, thank you so much. I have David on the phone from Northeast Baltimore. David, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for holding.
Good. I would just wanted to piggyback on some of the things I heard before, and that is that, memorization is an important tool to have in your bag, so to speak, to be able to process and to remember the processes that you're dealing with, like in math or reading even.
Right.
And the other thing is that even though they teach the information, very seldom do they teach kids how to take a test.
Right.
Right. A lot of times, you get on a test and, you look and see a whole bunch of different questions and different ways, and you may know the information, but if you don't understand how it's being presented, and how to go about, getting the max off the test, like doing the easy ones first and then come back to ones that may be giving you a problem, then, you get stuck on different things and you don't go through enough questions in order to, actually pump up your grade. So that's all I was going to say.
No, I think that's a good point in terms of actually beginning to teach some type of taking skill set. Yes, exactly. And exactly when does that happen? Are you teaching them test taking skills? Because third graders are taking the test, right? I mean, they're taking the test and they're not passing the test. And some of the reasons could be they don't even understand how to take the test.
Exactly. That's a really big point.
Right. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate that. We have Clarence on the phone from Pennsylvania. Clarence, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Dr. K.
I haven't heard from you in a while, so welcome back.
A little sad in hearing this conversation because it's been about a year that we spoke about the grading system in Baltimore City.
Yes.
And until that is taken care of, our children are going to fail. Our children don't really know how to speak. back in the day, as they would say, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yes.
Our children they no longer have cursive writing in school.
Nope.
And as far as the test taking goes, each child is different in taking a test. When I worked for BG&E, teaching adults is the hardest thing that you have to do. And whether we like it or not, the things that you need in all jobs, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And the sad thing about what's going on, next year with God's help, I'll be 70, and both of my children are grown. And if I had children in Baltimore City schools, I would be in jail every day because you have to go back. When I was in the South, we were in a one-room classroom, and we had teachers. The schools in Baltimore City, each principal is given a budget, and they do what they want to do. There's nothing standard. And until adults, parents, take care of our children, it's just sad that to listen to children, and we say that they can't speak, we say that they can't read, they can't write. So until we step up and understand that no matter what job that you have, you need basic math.
Yes.
And that's a
And that's something, thank you so much. So if you're not getting that in 3rd grade, 4th grade, if you're not getting basic math skills, folks, you're not going to get algebra in 10th grade. Let me just know, I just pulled up the Baltimore City Public School System, their grading scale. This is the one from 2015, 2016. Remember we talked about this last year, about the fact that here in Baltimore City, could be other places as well. I'm only focused on Baltimore City, that 59 or below is what failing is. A 60 is passing. That's a D-. So if we have our students here and they get 60 and that's a D-, and they're being passed on, what do you expect to happen? Because where else can you go with a bunch of 60s in the real world? I'm talking about moving on to a citywide high school, moving on to a college or university setting, and you have been made to believe that a 60 is doing a good job because you are being passed along. Note in a predominantly African-American folks, let's not forget what the reality is here in our city. I have Kevin on the phone. Kevin's a new call from South Baltimore. Kevin, welcome to the family.
How you doing, Dr. K?
I'm doing well.
I called in before.
Good. Well, welcome back.
Yeah, no problem. I said it before on your show one time that they need to change the curriculum in the schools. Just the way that the kids are learning now. Kids are learning different and faster just through computers and apps and all that type of thing.
Right.
So,
but we know that's not happening. We know there's a technological divide that's happening in these schools too, right, Kevin?
Well, right. We can't even fix the heat, let alone get.
Come on, that's what I'm saying.
I say the problem is every time they put Baltimore in the news, especially nationwide, it's always something negative.
Yep.
So you're not going to attract the best teachers to go in these schools because, first of all, they look at Baltimore as, oh, it's not safe and this, that, and the other. So we're not going to get the best teachers. I don't know what the salary is for these teachers.
We have very competitive salaries. And I'm not saying teachers make millions of dollars, but we have very competitive salaries. And I would push back a little bit because what I have found here, Kevin, as a former teacher myself, and I have a lot of educators that I work with, we have some very dedicated teachers who are committed to teaching our children. That's why they come to work here. Like the one working here, it's because of a labor of love in this city.
I agree. I was actually fishing with a teacher over, I believe, in Carver.
All right, we seem to. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Kevin. We're losing you, folks. I'm gonna have them fix Kevin's line. I'm gonna go on to Tavon from West Baltimore. Tavon, how are you?
I can relate to the one gentleman that called from D.C. when he said he graduated high school and he went to college. I had to take a bunch of remedial classes.
Yes.
That was like a reality check to me that I felt Baltimore City public schools had failed me on one hand. And on the other hand, for the lack of better terms, I wasn't incapable of learning to work. I was just a lazy student. I can actually admit that now as an adult. But that what happened was that competitive fire that came into me when I realized that I was in classes, paying for these classes and they were worth nothing. It was just a refresher course of things that I should have learned in my previous education, elementary, middle, and high school. That was the only, I took remedial classes for one semester. And from then on, I was on the dean's list until I finished school.
Excellent.
So it was like, it kind of struck a nerve in me. And it really did it because I was sitting in class with a bunch of our white counterparts, and they were like ahead, and I'm like, Dad, they looking at me like I'm stupid, and I know I'm not stupid. So,
right.
And the reality is, the education, it kind of correlates to the unemployment rate there. Because I can actually go online and find a bunch of jobs that people can't work. The fact is, people aren't qualified for them.
Right.
And it's one thing to not want to work or being physically unable to work, but you have to be qualified for a lot of these jobs that are available out here. And that definitely is a part of the education process here. It's like the guy just said, Baltimore is always in the news for something bad. But, I mean, we got to buckle down somewhere. We got to tighten up somewhere. We do. We got to go at it until we get on top of it.
But I do think that the area that I'm thinking the area that we need to plant our seed, though, the area that we need to kind of buckle down on, I'm saying the area is education, because let's think about it. There's no way we can have a future imagined in this city if we are not pouring everything we have into the next generation.
Yep.
Like, that's what we need to buckle down. Thank you so much, Greg. We have Kelly on the phone from Towson. Kelly, how are you?
Hi, Dr. K. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling.
That's great. One thing I want to make a comment on is that we have to get rid of our vocabulary saying that we can't or I'm not good at. Because as you think, you become. Yes. So if you constantly say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at reading, I'm not good at this, you'll never be good at it because you've already convinced yourself you're not. So we need to, and I'm a third grade teacher, and I teach other teachers to teach their children to say, I'm not good at it yet. And we call it the power of yet. And I can get better at it. But as teachers, we have to empower our students to not just practice. I need to know exactly where my weakness is. So I'm practicing on that. Also, I need to know myself and accept myself as a learner. So if I need to do math facts, and maybe I am an auditory learner, maybe saying the math facts out loud works better for me than writing them down. Because if I'm an auditory learner, writing them down, that's not complementing my learning style.
I like that. I'm not good at it yet. Yes, I like that.
I survey all of my students and I find out their learning style. Some of my desks are standing desks. So if you're a kinesthetic tactile learner, you might need to stand during the day. That works best for you.
Oh, I like what you're saying, Kelly.
By learning our style and do things that complement that.
Now, do you find, Kelly, I know we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you this very quickly. Do you find with the ways in which you have redesigned the space, because not too many teachers would have standing desks for the kinesthetic learners, right? For taking those breaks to make sure that your child is even an auditory learner, or are they a visual learner? Do they need to write things down? Do you find that this then translates into either higher test scores or higher grades or higher level of proficiency? Like, are you seeing a direct impact of what you're doing in the classroom?
I surely am, because my students, one, they're engaged. And first, I work on their mindset first, because I have to change your mindset. And once you start thinking you can't do that, and once I've empowered you, I've given you the knowledge and the information, and I'm going to support you, then they feel empowered that they can do it. And they'll determine even themselves, I can sit on a yoga ball, that's good for me. Another student say, I can't sit on the yoga ball, that's too distracting for me. So they know themselves, they know what works for them, and then I can reach them. And then the second thing is changing the culture of the value of education. We don't value education as much.
Now, I'm going to stop you there, Kelly. I'm so sorry. I appreciate you calling. We have Diane on the phone. Diane's a new caller from East Baltimore. Diane, welcome to the family.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to kind of touch on two different things. I've had the opportunity to work with students and teachers in different counties across the state. And the lack of resources that our students have in Baltimore City is really just outrageous. I mean, you can go into a classroom in Howard County or in Anne Arundel County, and they run the gambit when it comes to technology. I mean, and we're all in the same state, but yet our students in Baltimore City struggle. They struggle not only on having the necessary tools and resources, but just being able to provide heat and air during the right season.
That's unbelievable. I mean, if you think about that, though, I'm so glad you pointed that up, because the kind of challenges that our students here in Baltimore City have to face every day. I'm not talking about the neighborhood challenges, because we know those exist as well, right, Diane? I'm saying once they get in the school, the fact that the school is not set up to have them think out loud, dream out loud, be creative. I mean, I'm telling you, when I walk into Baltimore City schools and I'm looking at the bars on the window, the lack of stall doors in the bathroom, the no toilet tissue, can't drink the water, I would not want to learn there. It doesn't make me feel creative and loved and supported.
Exactly. And we're just not giving our students the right opportunities to be able to succeed. And it goes the same thing for our teachers. If we're not providing the students with the necessary tools, that also means we're not providing our teaching staff with the necessary tools to do their job to the highest level.
Thank you so much, Diane. Folks, these are things we have to look at. We have Greg on the phone. Greg's a new caller as well from Baltimore. Greg, how are you? And welcome to the family.
How you doing? Thank you for accepting my call.
Yes.
Hey, Dr. K, education is interesting in this respect. You got people that are willing to learn, who can learn, right? But there are a lot of obstacles.
Right.
And one of the main obstacles, I believe, is dysfunctional home life.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to figure out ways to deal with this, to bring some fun into the learning after perhaps the school hour.
Right.
All the recreation centers are closed.
Right. There's no green space.
Why can't we bring recreation centers in conjunction with study hours?
Right.
You know, we need to do some things that can energize people, make it fun, fun for them.
I agree.
I see they're lacking in so many things. First of all, we live in some of the smallest households, small houses. You know, you don't have room to breathe. You don't have room to study and function. You know, that's one of the things that tend to create problems for people.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Greg. I'm so sorry. We're running out of time. We have Nathaniel on the phone from Pikesville. Nathaniel, how are you?
Hey, Dr. K. You know, I got to blame the students for this one. You know, our ancestors have done far more with
third graders, Nathaniel. You blaming third graders?
Listen.
Third, you understand? We're talking third grade. So what? 8, 9 years old?
I know you, Doc. I don't know you personally, but I know Dr. K.
Come on.
You could probably teach anyone if I just gave you a pencil and a piece of paper. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You using your imagination and your wit. You could. I'm sure you could do it. So it's hard for me to believe that students don't have enough resources. They don't have enough this. They don't have enough that.
Right.
If the student shows up, the teacher will be there. I got it. It's the students.
Well, you know, Nathaniel, this hurts. This hurts, Nathaniel. This hurts.
It's the students.
I mean, when you talk about 10th graders, I'm not even putting them on the table. But when you start talking about the babies, that's when I bristle, because I'm thinking, well, what does an 8 or 9 year old really know about what they learn and what they need to learn? 10th grade is one thing, but 8 or 9 years old, like, you're still just kind of figuring out where you are every day.
That's what I thought. But get on YouTube. I'm not making this up. I mean, get on YouTube.
I'm gonna look tonight.
8 or 9 year olds. These 8 or 9 year olds in a whole different league.
I'm looking at him tonight. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. I have Apache on the line. Apache, how are you?
Hey, Dr. K. How you doing?
Well, welcome back. Haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah. Every now and then they make me actually work, so I can't have to go and take care of stuff. Hey, real quick, I would just like to say, you know, a lot of the teachers that called in and educators and the people that work with children had a lot of great points. That one teacher that said that, you know, how she diversifies, how she teaches
the
different students was really awesome. You know, more teachers need to think like that. and need to have the capability and ability
and the support
and resources to do that, and support, to do things like that, because a lot of them are constrained to just teach in a certain way, because Baltimore City is looking for stats. They're looking to climb out of the stay above float on the numbers, because we're in this kind of program of as far as okay, the students are doing certain well, or certain statistics or whatever, marks, benchmarks, and then that equals $2,
right.
Funding and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that constrains a lot of students. But I like to say that a lot of these children, I disagree with the last guy completely. A lot of the children, they have a lot of distractions, rather, a lot of environmental distractions inside of the school, outside of the school. We have to consider that. We have to teach around that. So we have to start analyzing what the students are going through, and start figuring out solutions to, getting around that. One of the things that I think is most important is relevance. If the students start learning what is the relevance of what they're being taught to their actual everyday life, and
it might change things.
Then it'll click a little bit better. I took French. I went to school here in Baltimore. I took French for 3 years, came out learning 5 words. Okay. But if the teacher would have told me that, hey, in Africa, there are several countries that speak French, then it would have been relevant.
I got to stop you there, Patrick. I'm so sorry. Yeah. We have one more call. Robert from Northwest Baltimore. Robert, if you got a 30-second comment, I want to get you in here.
Hey, man, just God bless everybody, and let God work it out for us. And just ask God to give us help and knowledge and wisdom to fight through these obstacles that we have with our young children and the school system on a whole.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate you. So, folks, we're going to leave the conversation here at this moment. I want to encourage you to get down to 200 East North Avenue. Get to that school board meeting. It starts at 5:00. You can sign up. You can speak. You can be there. So when Dr. Santelises lays his paper out and the school board votes, your voice is heard. These are our children. This is our future. This is the generation that we are preparing. And right now, your voice is needed. We're going to leave it here for today. Today with Dr. K is a production of WEAA. The show is produced by Justina Pollard with our help from our intern, Deja Edwards. Andre Melton was on the board today. Thank you, Dre. Stay tuned, because up next is For the Culture. Today, the show is going to be guest hosted by none other than Anthony McCarthy. So stand by to talk with Anthony. Remember, here on Today with Dr. K, your voice matters, your opinion matters. We tell stories that matter. We're here for you. We're listening. If it has your ear, you better believe it has our attention. Make an appointment. Meet me back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. and let's talk all over again. Here's a quick update from MTA.
And a good evening. Bus diversions on the Purple Line westbound to Lombard and Fulton. The Orange Line diverted at Franklin and Cary. The Lime Line seeing diversions on the westbound side at Eastern and Eden. And the Lime Line southbound diverted at Caroline and Goff. On the Penn Line of the MARC train system, we're still seeing a pretty decent ride. However, train 641 heading to Washington is running almost 15